You ever get so mad at somebody's views that you just feel like deleting them? Well, today on Daily Renewal, we're going to talk about what you should be thinking about before you delete somebody from your life. You know, whether we like to admit it or not, social media has changed a lot of things in our lives. And one of the biggest things that has changed is what we call friends. You know, it used to be that if we had a friend, it was somebody that we spent time with, somebody maybe that we grew up with, somebody that we invested time, parts of our life to. But now, with the invention of Facebook and a lot of the other social media platforms, you know, the idea of what we call friends is quite a bit different. You know, maybe you met somebody once on a trip or something, and now they're one of your multitude of friendships. But when you look at what at the depth of friendships that we used to have, or what we used to call friends, in comparison to what we call friends now, it's quite a bit different, at least for most people. You know, they consider friends on Facebook their friends. But that brings up another phenomenon that I really want to talk about today, and that's how disposable our friends seem to be. Our new friends, our Facebook friends. You know, one of the things that I've noticed on social media lately is that there's a lot of people that seem to have a lot of anger toward people they call friends, potentially, about some of the views they have about life. You know, it seems that everybody has views on politics. Everybody has views on a lot of the social things that are going on, whether it's the wearing of masks or passports or, you know, a lot of the different government mandates that are here regarding some of the things we've had to go through for the past year and a half or however long it's been. That is far beyond the 2 weeks to flatten the curve. You know, there's that. There's all kinds of different topics that people have a really strong opinion about. You know, and religion also another one of them. And it's gotten to the point where I'm seeing more and more that people are using their social media platforms to tell everybody how angry they are, and also to tell them that if you don't agree with what they think about these particular topics, then you can erase them or defriend them from your social media platform. In other words, get rid of them. If you don't think the same way as me, I don't want anything to do with you. Well, we're going to delve into that topic today, and we're going to talk about, you know, what our attitude should be as a Christian in regards to deleting people from our lives. I'm Pastor Lyle, and welcome to Daily Renewal. If this is your first time tuning in with us, I just want to ask you to consider becoming a subscriber to our channel so you can see when all of our latest videos are available. Also, if you're getting benefit from the content, please like and share these videos with anybody that you think that they will help. You'd be amazed at how much that helps us, but also how it may help some people that are going through some of the same thoughts and wondering what to do about some of these things. So please like and share the videos. So let's start off today. I want to talk to you about three things in particular that I think that we should all think about before we delete somebody from our social media platforms. And the first one is, you know, if we are deleting people, the first thing that we should be wondering about or asking ourselves is if we really care about our opinion more than we care about people. You know, the first commandment that Jesus gave us, in fact, he said all along the commandments hang on these two. You can find this in Matthew 22, starting at verse 37. He says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, which means all of your understanding. And it says, this is the first and greatest commandment. And you might be saying, well, Pastor Lyle, that's me. I love God. I go to church. I tithe. I do all the things that my church and my pastor tell me to do. I love God more than anybody. But then it goes on and says, and the second is like it. It says, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Now, this can get very complicated because a lot of people say, well, who's my neighbor? Now, in general, what this is saying is that we should really be careful about how we're treating other people. Now, when it comes to some of the things and some of the ideas that we use, that we have as our the things that make up our belief system, the things that we really strongly believe. You're going to find that there's lots of people that aren't going to fully agree. In fact, maybe nobody will fully agree with everybody if you were able to dissect everybody's belief system and put yours on the table. Probably there wouldn't be very many people that are exactly the same. And that being the case, this brings up how we should be treating other people. Now, if the first commandment is that we're supposed to love God basically with everything that we are, and the second commandment is like unto it, that we should love our neighbor as ourselves, then that brings me to an illustration that I think that we should all be thinking about. Now, I want you to think about this. Let's say that you had a terminal illness, and some friend of yours knew that you had this illness, and they were the only one on the planet that had the antidote that could save your life. But somewhere down the line, they didn't like one of your Facebook posts, and all of a sudden you get this illness, and they, knowing they're the only ones that could save your life, got offended at your Facebook post, and they decided that they are not going to help you. They're just going to let you die. Well, what would you think of that person in regards to what we just talked about in the book of Matthew, chapter 22? That would probably constitute that they are not a very good neighbor. I mean, what kind of a person would hold back life-saving medicine knowing full well they're the only one with the answer? Well, let's put the shoe on the other foot. Let's say that there's somebody who you care about, or that there's a relationship, but you're the one with the life-saving antidote. But all of a sudden, somebody has said something to you. Maybe they dissed your religion. Maybe they didn't like the person you voted for. Maybe they don't agree with some of your stances on some of the things in social, some of these social things that are happening, and you decided that you want nothing to do with them. Well, here's the problem, friend, is that when we talk about this life-saving antidote, as a Christian, the key thing that you have to remember and you have to focus on is why you are here. Jesus, if it was just about us saying a prayer and then all of a sudden, you accept Jesus into your heart, as many people, they give that example. I just pray this prayer and you're right with God. All of a sudden, boom, if it was just about that, it'd be boom, you're in heaven and this would all be over and we'd be in eternity with him. But for some reason, Jesus decided to leave us here. Why was that? And that's what we need to focus on. For us as believers, we have to understand that part of the reason, the greatest part of the reason that Jesus left us here is so we could be a witness for him and tell other people about the grace that we can find, the saving grace that is found only in Jesus Christ. Jesus came to seek and save the lost. And for us that already know him, we now know that answer to how to be reconciled to God. And there's many people here that don't have that answer, that have never heard what I often refer to as the gospel. If somebody doesn't hear the gospel, the message of why Jesus came and how they can become right with God through relationship with Jesus Christ, if there is nobody here to tell them that, then there is no hope for them eternally. And I submit to you that is exactly the same as having the antidote to somebody who is going to die if they don't get that antidote. We as believers have the answer for a person's eternity. And when we make the decision to cut them off, when we say, I am no longer wanting to speak to them, what we are saying is that they don't qualify for me to help give them the antidote that will eventually give them an eternity where they're not separate from God. Are you really in the position where you want to do that? And see, for us as believers, if we have a focus on what's often referred to as evangelism, the fact that there's people that are in a lost and dying world, people who are deceived, and I talked about this in one of my episodes a couple weeks ago. If somebody is deceived in any area of life, they don't know they're deceived. There's a lot of well-meaning people that don't know they're in deception. But for us who do know Jesus, we have to understand that we have to ask the Lord to help reveal to people truth. And in a lot of these situations where we've decided to cut people off, what we've done is we've basically said, this person is so deceived that I'm believing that there's no hope for them. Therefore, I'm taking a stand, and I'm not doing actually what I've been called to do. My friend, if you are a believer in Jesus Christ, you cannot afford to cut people off from your relationships. I mean, there's times where you may walk away for a season, and there's times where people will walk away from you. That's totally different. There's a lot of people who decided to walk away from Jesus, but anybody who was willing to listen to what Jesus had to say, he would never cut them off. And so for us as believers to be taking stands and saying, I'm going to cut somebody off just because maybe we don't like to see some of the things they post, because basically they've got different opinions than us, we have lost focus on why we're here. These are people that if we cut those relationships off, it could be cutting off a potential opportunity down the road for us to be able to speak life to them, to see their eternal antidote be given to them by us. Now, the second thing that I want you to keep in mind is that if you're willing to cut somebody off, again, you're a believer and you say, I've had enough. I'm just, if you don't believe this way, I'm going to cut you off. We're no longer going to be friends. Well, the thing that we really need to consider, and I want you to turn to Ephesians with me, and I know this will be a challenge for some people, but I want you to take a look at this. Let's look at Ephesians 4, and this is the idea of how we should be thinking about other people. How, again, we need to be really concerned about how we treat other people. Now, in this particular portion of Scripture in Ephesians 4, we're going to start at verse 25. This is about being led by the Spirit of God. And there is things that we can do that can, as you can see, you're going to see here, that can grieve the Spirit of God. So let's take a look, starting from verse 25. Again, chapter 4 of the book of Ephesians. It says, therefore, put away lying. Let each of you speak the truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another. So I'm talking about the importance of, if you get the opportunity to speak the truth to somebody that you're around, take the opportunity. And it says this, it says, be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your wrath. So, in regards to talking with people, there's going to be times and situations where you're going to be tempted to get angry at people. But it says, don't sin. And it says, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. In other words, don't let it fester when you're talking with somebody you don't agree with them. It goes on, talks about, let him who stole steal no longer, rather let him labor, working with his hands what is good, that he may have something to give him who has need. And then it says, let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification, that it may impart grace to the hearers. Now that's loaded. Now let's dissect this a little bit. It says, let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification. Well, what is edification? Now the idea of edification is to build someone up. In other words, in our conversations, we should always have in mind that even when somebody doesn't agree with some of your thoughts, some of your beliefs, we should always be looking to try and build people up. And then from there, it says, if we do that, it will potentially impart grace to the hearers. So that word grace, what does grace mean? Grace is something that when we look at God's grace for us is something that's often referred to as the unmerited favor of God. In other words, it's something you can't do anything to get. We don't deserve it. It's unmerited favor. But it goes even further than that. But I want to focus on that just for a moment. It's something you can't earn. Secondly, though, grace, I often refer to it as this. It's the power of God that enables us to do what we can't do in our own strength. And we need God's grace. We need the power of God in our life beyond what we can do. So we rely on Him for strength rather than just rely on us. So let's take a look at that and piece that together. It says, let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, but what is good and necessary for edification. So, in other words, we want our communication to be the kind of communication that will build people up so that it will impart grace or the power of God that is beyond what they themselves have. In other words, it brings the power of God to them, to the hearers. And then it goes on, says, and do not grieve the Spirit of God by whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. So, and then from there, it's important we see this. It says, let all bitterness, wrath, anger, clamor, and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. So, as we put this together, I want to show you that the heart of God here is that when we have conversations with people, people that don't necessarily agree with a lot of our thinking, we want to do our best, first of all, to speak the truth to them. Second of all, we want to speak in such a way that we can hopefully build them up and also have allow the grace of God to be upon their life. In other words, empower them to be able to walk this life out. But in order to do that, we have to see that it talks about the fact that we can't grieve the Spirit. And it goes on to say that how to grieve the Spirit is right here. It says if we are operating in our conversations with people out of bitterness, wrath, anger, clamor, evil speaking, then these things, and it says we're supposed to put away all malice. These things are things that will grieve the Holy Spirit. Now, you can have all the correct statistics. Like for me, I'm up to date on a lot of the things. I've got some real strong views about some of the things that are going on socially, politically, and definitely, when it comes to religious beliefs. I got strong views on all these things. And I could sit there and I could win arguments with a lot of people. And at the same time, I could make them feel 2 feet tall. I could embarrass them, because of different, I'm a good talker, all these things, and I'm not saying that in a braggadocious way, but, I could make people, I could belittle people and win arguments, but lose people. And, God's whole desire is for us, as I mentioned earlier, is not to lose people. We want to help people see truth, but if we're doing this in a way where, and with some of the conversations I see people having, and again, if you're at the point where you're blocking people on your social media sites or social media platforms because you don't like some of their opinions, then you're probably at this point where you have maybe some bitterness towards them. There's wrath inside. There's maybe some anger towards them. Maybe you've spoken some evil about them, and you have some malice towards them. Well, that right there should be an indication to you that something's not right. And these are things that are indicators that you very well may have grieved the Spirit of God. And for those that love God, and again, I want to, if this is where you're at, then this also qualifies you to be under what I mentioned earlier, deception. If you're right here going, well, Pastor Lyle, I don't know if I agree with that. They said this and they do that, and you don't know exactly how mad they are. And if we're coming up with excuses as to why we're actually cutting people off, when our whole reason to be here, one of our key reasons to be here is to reach people for Jesus, if we're cutting people off, if we test our own heart, I guarantee there's some of these things that even if there's a speck of truth to it, we shouldn't be in the place where we want that stuff to be in our own heart, because these things are indicators that we're grieving the Spirit of God. And we go on from there. In verse 32, it says we're supposed to be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you. If somebody is deceived, if somebody doesn't understand why they're doing what we're doing, if there's ever a group of people that should be that should have some heart towards those people, that should be compassionate towards those people that and I look at this. There's a lot of times where I look at people who don't know Jesus, some of the things they do. I'm a lot easier on those kind of people, and I believe Jesus was as well. He had a hard time with the people who the religious order of the day, who thought they knew God and they were going to tell people about it. People who on the outside looked like they were, they put on an act to knowing God, but really often Jesus referred to those religious people as being full of dead men's bones, or being like whitewashed tombs. Often when we're dealing with people that don't understand the Bible, they've never had a relationship with Jesus, they are going to bite in. What would you expect? They're going to bite into a lot of the cultural norms. When they don't know the truth, when they've never experienced, hearing God's point of view, there's no other direction really that they can go. And so we need to have compassion on these people. If there's ever a group of people that needs to understand that there's people that are operating in deception, and they, as I mentioned earlier, they're probably well-meaning. They're not, they don't understand a lot of things. We have to be the people who are going to err on the mercy side, the people that are going to have the compassion, the people that are going to stick it out even when they wouldn't stick it out maybe for us, because Jesus stuck it out for us, and he continues to do that today. And that leaves me with my last point. If you're somebody that really feels like, as a believer, I'm just going to delete people. This is a question that I think that we all always have to ask ourselves. Is pride being revealed in our life? In 1 Peter 5:5 and James 4:6, there's a phrase in there that is in both of these that I think we need to always do a little bit of a litmus test in our own heart about, and it's this. It says that God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And, when it talks about him resisting the proud, if you study this out, it's actually a lot firmer than that. He's against the proud. He makes war against, is almost what that is what that's referring to. He's not just resisting. He's against pridefulness. And for us as believers, and this I find tougher even, I guess for somebody that's been going to church longer, somebody that's claimed to be a Christian longer, this is something that we really do need to guard against, is pride, because, often once we've been doing these things, walking with God for a long time, we begin to think that we know, a lot more than sometimes we know. And one of the things that I heard years ago that I really do believe, and it's this: the closer I get to God, the bigger I realize he is, and the smaller I realize I am. There's so much. The closer I get to God, there's so much more that I realize that I don't know. God's wisdom is so far beyond mine, and yet, as much as that's the case, he's a good father who wants to give me all the wisdom that I need to walk this life out. But, I'm limited because of where I am. And what I mean by that, the best illustration I can give is, a father has way more wisdom than a 4-year-old child. But the limitation there for the wisdom isn't because the father doesn't want to give the child the wisdom. It's because you're dealing with a 4-year-old child, and he's not capable of being able to take in all that wisdom at one time. We're the same way. When it comes to the things of God, we have to be, as I often say, and as the Bible talks about, we have to be as little children. When you think that you've got every situation and all of life's problems figured out, and and you're smarter than everybody else, these are the times when often you're going to find out that God will arrange things to let you see that you need a little bit of humility in your life. And so it's always best to stay humble in all situations. You might think that you have all the answers in regards to, like I said, passports and who should be, in my case, Prime Minister of Canada and the U.S., the president or wherever country you're from, the leaders of your country. You might think that you know all that stuff better than everyone else. But there's a lot of variables that we don't know, and ultimately God is the final say. There is no leader in power right now that's sitting in office and God's looking down and going, "Oh wow, that one made it by me. I didn't realize that the people were going to vote for that guy." No, God knows exactly who is going to be leader of every country, and many people say that countries get the leaders that they deserve. Well, just remember that God knows exactly what's going on. So whatever leader is in our country, didn't take God by surprise. But for us, we have to, getting back to the idea of pride, we have to humble ourselves, and so the idea of hypocrisy, often when we decide to, for instance, block somebody from a social media platform because of their views, what we're actually saying is that we think that we are better than they are, or that they are not deserving of me. We're putting ourselves on a pedestal and we're putting somebody else down below us. And we can never have that attitude. We should never have that attitude. When we look at the book of Romans, for example, in Romans 6:23, I want you to listen to this. It says, the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life. But let me establish that the wages of sin, if we commit sin, we do not have the right to stand before a holy God. But I want to couple that with another scripture in Romans. Romans 3:23 says, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. See, we have to understand that if the wages of sin is death and all have fallen short, then what this is saying is that there is none of us that qualify to stand before God, a righteous God, and say that we are deserving to be there. All of us are start off in the same place. And this is why, when we look at the importance of the gospel, why Jesus came, why he had to die on a cross, why we have to repent of our sins and accept that free sacrifice, that free gift that Jesus gave to us, when we believe in him, which means trust in, rely upon, and adhere to Jesus, when we give our life to him, because we know that there's no other answer, there's no other way to be reconciled to God other than through Jesus. When we make that decision, we humble ourselves, we realize that we can't do it on our own, and what happens is there's a transformation that happens in our life. But I'll tell you what doesn't happen. That doesn't make us better than anyone else, including those who never make a decision for Christ. What it does is it puts us in right standing with Christ. But often we can get to this point where we think, if I become a Christian, that puts me on a different standard. Well, to a degree it does, but it doesn't make us better than anyone else. And in fact, what it should do is it should urge us on to understand the position that everybody else that surrounds us, everybody else in our life, whether it's a coworker or a relative, somebody we care about, or even somebody we don't even necessarily care about, if they don't know Jesus, they are doomed to a life, an eternal life separate from God. And this should be something that encourages us to really want to reach out to people. And really, what this is saying is that anyone that really hasn't committed to Jesus, they are deserving of your time. They're deserving because Jesus gave his life so that they would have opportunity to know him. Now, deserving on their own merits? Absolutely not. None of us deserve it. We all deserve eternal damnation. But the fact that Jesus came, died on the cross for my sins, your sins, and the sins of the world, that should help us look at people who really don't think the same way as us and go, you know what? Even though they may do things that I don't agree with, I need to go the extra mile to help reach these people, because obviously these people are in a position where they need some help. And let's not forget, friend, we are set here to be the hands and feet, if you're a believer, the hands and feet of Jesus here on earth. Well, I hope you're challenged by that today. And if you are looking to delete people off your Facebook, I ask you at least just pray about some of these things. Where is your heart in regards to people? Have you just cut people off? Have you got sidetracked by your mission here? It's not just for us to go to church and sing nice songs and hopefully lead a clean lifestyle. No, Jesus left us here because there's a generation of people that we are here. We're in this time to reach people for Christ, because people need to know that without Jesus, without making a commitment to him, they are truly lost. And we are the ones that play a role in helping them truly find salvation. Well, I hope you got something out of that today. If you did, again, I just want to encourage you to become a subscriber to our channel. Also, like and share this video with anybody that you think this will help. And also, if you'd like to contribute to our ministry financially, take a look at the links below. There's a couple different avenues where you can do that as well. I really enjoyed our session of Daily Renewal today. But until next time, God bless you and have a great day.